Okay, everyone. So I have Al Swanger on this episode today. It's very kind of him to meet me here. You're in the UK, is it, Al?
That's right. Yeah, I'm in England, just outside Bristol.
Oh, lovely. Cool. So how is it there at the moment? Are you gigging away?
Yeah, it's been pretty busy. I do find things come in kind of last minute, but they keep me taking over for sure.
Cool. Okay, very good. Yeah, I could imagine. Did you ever get a chance to play in the Vortex?
That's over in London. I mean, I have played there, but not for a while.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd love to go there sometime in the future. I heard it's really great for free jazz.
Yeah, yeah, they have all sorts on. Yeah,
Cool,
so,
man.
quite a few different places you could probably approach. But yeah, I'm sort of transitioning myself kind of out of more mainstream music, which I still do with people, into my own stuff, which is more a combination of free and electronic and other stuff. And sort of having to find a whole new set of places and people to get to know.
Yeah, different scene. A different scene completely. I was listening to some of your Pointless Beauty stuff anyway. It's really nice. It's recorded very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, did you record it in England?
Yeah, I've done albums in different places, and sometimes I do bits at home, so it gets recorded in a range of places. My process is often quite drawn out because I'll sketch everything first and then introduce new musicians into it.
Yeah, well, it sounds well rehearsed as well. It's very fluid.
Great, thank you.
No, very nice. No, I really enjoyed it. I'm just here in Kilkenny at the moment, back in my own gaff. And I just said, why not do something like this on a Sunday when we're not doing anything else? So I wanted to talk to you about your philosophy, basically, when it comes to jazz. I don't even want to use the word jazz, but when it comes to your music, your philosophy, and how and what are you trying to say?
Sure. So I think not just for jazz, but whatever the music is, the things that are kind of underneath it, it's about kind of mutual understanding, communication, and trying to sort of have some sort of emotional catharsis with your audience and the other musicians. We want to have a dialogue where we're all kind of stretching in the same kind of direction. And the jazz thing for me is anything that includes improvisation as a significant aspect of it, for me, is jazz. So it's not kind of just the American songbook, and it's not just whatever. It's about the attitude and the direction of the musicians.
And would you call your music improvised music, or would you call it jazz?
I kind of prefer improvised music overall, although I do call it jazz because that is my background. I still feel, because of that kind of improvised element of it, I still do feel overall like I'm a jazz musician, but it does depend who you're talking to about how they perceive that music. And I think for people outside of jazz, it can be a troublesome word because of the associations that it's been given by the media. And I think to some extent it's still hard to kind of get past that 90s fast show, nice kind of thing that it was given. People write it off really easily without listening to the music. I mean, I'm sure it's the same for you. How many gigs have you done where people say something at the end like, I don't normally like jazz, but I liked that?
Yeah, exactly. It puts it in a box that's not helpful, I think. I was talking to Michael Atias a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking a lot about that as well, and he just calls it his own music, you know. And it is the thing with that, because as soon as you say jazz or free jazz or even improvised music, it does put it in a box and takes away from the character of the person playing it. Which is a shame, like, because I love saying I'm a free jazz musician. I think that's a really cool thing to say about yourself. I think it's a privilege to be able to call yourself that. But the association it has with other things, like I was trying to get a gig about a month ago at a certain place, and the person over it was like, oh, I don't think the audience would be into this type of music. And I wanted to say, like, well, what type of music do you mean? Because it's different every gig, you know, and then it'll only confuse them more. And, you know, I had a quote. It was like, I've played some gigs where it sounded like candy and ice cream, and then other gigs sounded like volcanoes. So I think, like, you really have to be clear what you're giving the person, the promoter. Would you find similar situation yourself? Do you send off an email with kind of your music, or how would you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, I include the clips to the music and a bit of live and a bit of a studio thing and a bit of articulation as to what I think I'm trying to do, you know, and some of the quotes from press and audience feedback. But yeah, it's a constant process of refinement, trying to make it more concise and get to the point quickly without losing the spirit of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
My strapline for my thing is cinematic fusion for the emotionally curious. Because I want to try and get a sort of, make people curious about what it might be. Because if they listen to the music, then you've kind of got half the battle. It's once you've heard a thing, you know whether it appeals to you or not. But while you're still talking in genre labels and so on, like you were saying, prejudices kick in long before anyone's actually got the experience of what it is you do.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, just even putting it down as your own name, like Al Swanger or Adam Nolan, for example, like, rather than saying it's free jazz or it's improvised music or whatever, and just allow people to experience it themselves, what it is. This is maybe a direction I want to take, you know. That's why I bring it up, and I was just wondering, are you in a similar conundrum?
Yeah, all the time. And what can you do to get them over the threshold? I mean, part of the reason my name is on the front of it, generally I don't use it, I just call it Pointless Beauty, but I do call it Al Swanger's Pointless Beauty because I'm the bass player. And there's all these hierarchical associations with who's going to be in charge. So if people see a band, they'll assume it's the flute player's band in my case. And if you don't have a horn player there, they'll assume it's the piano or the guitar player's band. You know, you're at the bottom of the tree. So it's just there to kind of try and assert that around it.
I seen in your description on Spotify, you would have similar influences or would be compared to Weather Report. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. You can't put all the influences that come into your music down, can you? So it's a bit of that blend of who will people have heard of that's maybe kind of vaguely in a similar ballpark, but we're influenced by everybody we hear our whole lives, and we cherry pick all the things that we love out of them, and hopefully it's something different. And when people feed back and they tell you what your music sounds like, it really frets what they've listened to. What are they familiar with? I heard something that reminded me of this, therefore you sound like that. It's kind of the process. And I don't mind that. I mean, I'm very happy for people to make those associations with things that they like, and to, you know, when it's open and it's cinematic music and they're inventing their own little stories about this is what this music made me think of, or it made me feel like this, and that's great. I think that's the other half of the music. Once we've composed our thing, or, you know, if it's free music and you've set it out into the world, then we've done our bit, and the interpretation and the ways that it's made people think of an audience, for them to feed that back to you, it's kind of, that's the extra part of its life.
Very nice. And who would you consider to be your influences?
I mean, all kinds of things. When I was... As
a bass player, that is.
I was a bass player, right? I mean, if it's on double bass, then I'm a huge Ray Brown fan. If it's on electric, then range of people, Pino Palladino, Steve Harris, Iron Maiden. I like a lot of those 70s players where they treat the instrument like a melodic thing, and you get a lot of improvisation in the course of it.
Stanley Clarke, would you be interested in him?
Yeah, Stanley Clarke's great. Jacko, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, I think players like Christy McBride and so on are great, but probably I'd already set a lot of what I do together before I get to those guys, maybe.
Right.
But yeah, I used to transcribe all kinds of people. And they become part of your language and the way that you approach the instrument.
Mm. And when you're playing, are you trying to replicate something you've heard, or are you trying to create something new? That's a very odd question, I think, because
I think it depends where you are. I'm generally composing from a point of view of improvisation.
Yeah.
So it's however the music needs to feel. And when I listen to it back and I look at it, I can kind of recognize where influences have come from, but I'm never setting out to emulate anybody.
Okay, very good. Very good. Yeah, because I was thinking about the whole concept of transcribing recently, and I've done a bit of transcribing over the years, but a lot of what I've tried to do myself is just create new things. I found, like, at one stage I had a load of licks, if you want to call it, of different players, and there's only so much times you can play those licks. To the point where you're like, okay, I want to actually create my own thing now. And I was listening to Michael Brecker, and the thing about Michael Brecker, and it was talking about how, like, he did so much transcription, and he included all these amazing quotes from famous saxophone players, etc. And I think Michael Brecker is amazing, you know.
Yeah.
But personally, I don't really listen to Michael Brecker. He wouldn't be my sax player to listen to. I would prefer someone like Joe Henderson or Karu Abe, and these kind of players that don't seem to quote as much, maybe. Because what I'm looking for is something new and fresh. And I'm not saying Michael Brecker wasn't fresh, because he certainly was. But I think for me, personally, when I'm listening to him, after a few minutes, I'm kind of like, okay, I get it. You know? Whereas there's other sax players where I'm like, okay, I don't get it. I'm going to continue listening to an album or two of this, and then I'll get it. You know, he's easier to figure out, I think. You know, his concept of playing. In my opinion.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think Mike Brecker's pretty astonishing, but then I haven't got any influences or any background in approaching it to kind of go, oh, okay, it's that again. Whereas I might do with bass players, and I certainly get that a lot when I hear new albums of things. If it contains a load of influences with which I'm already familiar, then I probably won't feel it's that new, and I wouldn't get excited about it.
Yeah.
But then, you know, if it's just an area that I've completely missed out on, and then I hear it for the first time, which can still happen, obviously, then that's a different story. So I think, it's about where we are.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
rather than where the artist is.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, where we are, because anyone could listen to it and think about it in a different way, depending where we are, where they are. So I was wondering as well, like, when it comes to playing solos, when you're soloing, do you have a concept that you work with, or multiple concepts, or is it based on feel? Do you start with... I know that's a vague question. Let me kind of refine that a bit. Can you see where you're going with the solo? Are you just trying to create something new on the spot? Or are you basing it off shape, a scale?
So I have Anaralia. Do you know what that is?
It's I don't, no.
Okay. So I gather most people can kind of hear, if you think of a piece of music, you can kind of hear it in your head, maybe play it back like it was a recording, or if you imagine the sound of an instrument, you can kind of hear what that instrument sounds like. I don't have that. I don't have any kind of oral imagination in that way.
Right.
But what I worked out I still have memory, but I carry it in my muscles instead. So I do a lot of miming. If I'm thinking about a piece of music, recording a melody or whatever, I can feel the muscles in my throat tighten where I would sing it or play it or something. So I carry it differently.
Okay. Cool.
But it does also mean that you can't hear the chords around you or whatever. So it depends on the circumstance that I'm in. I really like to, if I'm going to do a solo, I like to have harmonic stuff going on around me, so then I can react to it.
Yeah.
But it also means that it's very hard to remember licks and things, which isn't to say that I don't have habits and things that I do a lot, but then the idea of learning a bunch of someone's licks and then sort of forcing them into solos because they work here and we've done it a lot, my brain doesn't really work that way, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, each time I'm having a solo, if I've been left on my own and there's no support for me to work over, then if I've got the chord sequence, I can kind of do it intellectually by what I know from theory ought to work, but that's not my favorite way of doing it. I'd rather use my ears and respond to what's happening around me.
Yeah.
Which obviously is great for free music and ambient and other stuff, but if you're in a situation where it's a jazz standard and it's all 165s and things, then that can become a little bit more like doing crossword puzzles for me.
Yeah. No, I get that.
If it's a thing I know really, really well, then I can sort of leave that on one side. But yeah, generally I'm just having at it and trying to play what I feel the music needs to do.
Very good. Yeah, because I'm practicing joint steps lately. I have a Coltrane tribute coming up soon, and joint steps is one of the tracks on it. And I was saying to a friend recently, I was saying, oh man, like these changes are just the opposite of free jazz. You know, you have to be so in it. You have to be so committed to the changes, playing the changes, to make it work. I think if you're trying to play outside the changes, it might only work for a couple of seconds, but it's like a catapult that just keeps bringing you back. And like what you said about a crossword puzzle, I can feel that in my improvisation. It's like I'm trying to figure out this Chinese puzzle box when I'm improvising over a standard, for example. Compared to free jazz, where in free jazz I'm more free to be whatever I want to be. And that's, I think, what I was hoping to figure out from you on your half. How do you go about a free jazz solo where there's not constricted chords in it, or certain, let's say you have to do just a bass solo by itself.
Yeah.
Where would you have to go from there? And it has no chord changes.
Just to run quickly over your point about giant steps. I mean, I kind of like doing it at the, that Pat Metheny bossa kind of thing that he does, where it slows right down because you've got time to think about it and actually try and play through the changes.
Yeah.
And the big problem with doing anything fast and the ferocious speeds that people do giant steps at is that you don't have time for your brain to work. So it becomes about muscle memory and what do I already know which is going to work, and just trying to stay afloat. I often don't do stuff that's really fast because of that. I want the solo to be meaningful rather than what my body can achieve.
What I do, you see, for it is I start off in 150 BPM. Then the second time I play this, after maybe 12 choruses, the second time I play, it'll be 170 or 180. Then I'll go up to 230, etc., etc. Yeah, I think it's almost essential to do that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll spend ages doing up like 5 BPM at a time. Because you want that distance to be sort of so negligible that you don't really notice the change from the last time you did it, and then over the course of a few hours you've driven it up lots, but your brain's adjusted at those tiny little speeds that kind of make that more achievable. If you jump too far at once, it's kind of just falling again. But yeah, I mean, to come back to then the free improvisations, it does depend on the context that you're in. So often for me, if it's like traditional free jazz, that's still quite difficult because stylistically, you're often still, as a bass player, still stuck in this kind of ending up doing walking lines. And to fight against that and actually do something different, because once you've started doing a walking line, it's really hard to get out of it again.
Right. It's a bass solo by itself.
There can be a little danger that it never kind of gets a feeling of movement.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, that's part of the reason I like all the effects and things that I do, and ambient improvisation and other things, is because it kind of takes all of that tradition and puts it on one side. So it's not really a consideration in how we're going to start or how things are going to develop. But yeah, being playful, and I do like even though it's free improvisation, I like anything to be available. So if it's going to go into a familiar chord sequence or a familiar groove or out of it, I think all of that should still be on the table. I struggle with the vibe where it's, if you spot any pattern coming or anything recognizable, we need to immediately get away from that, because it can feel like I'm just stuck in a room with people that are refusing to talk to each other. And I like those oscillations between things getting really crazy, lots of dynamic variety, and things that are more familiar. Because I guess as well, I've got half an ear on me being in an audience, and there's only so much kind of really complicated chaos I can take as a listener before I want some reflection time. And so by moving into something that's more familiar, more tonal, maybe through periods, you get that time for your ears and your brain to catch up with what's happened, and then we can take it back out of that again, so we can oscillate in and out of those things. And yeah, things can be crazy still, where people are hooking up on patterns or choosing not to, or I like to feel there's choice in there, and that choice is part of how people are communicating, and it's not just people doing stuff at the same time.
Absolutely. When I hear like the likes of Orrin Coleman's free jazz, it sounds like multiple instruments all going in different directions, but at the same time they're listening to each other. I think that's a great thing, because for like a free jazz group just starting off in this, I could see how it so easily could be perceived that, okay, we all have to do random things, that amateur kind of viewpoint of it, which both of us would know that isn't the way to go. But I could see how that could easily happen. For, let's say, a rock guitarist. A rock guitarist wants to take up free jazz. What does he do? Most people would probably go, okay, I just play random notes. But that isn't what it's about. It's actually nearly the opposite of that, in my opinion. It's it should be very intentional and informed what you choose to do. For sure. But that, and you get the same kind of thing in colleges and so on, when the students are turned loose on modal tunes, because anything can happen, but it still sounds rubbish for the most part, because it's not informed by any real choice. All of the great players who've been through that period of evolving modal and free jazz and so on had come out of a really structured thing first, and chosen to do something different. But all of that knowledge of structure and harmony was then a choice for them. It informed what they did. And it's about knowing what's possible, choosing not to do that, or choosing to do that. But it's the choice is in there, and if you've got no framework backing up how you're approaching it in the first place, then it's not choice, it's just guesswork. And I suppose it's okay to have a little guess now and again.
That doesn't mean that I think you should still have curiosity and strive for things, and be prepared for things not to work or for them to be different from what you intended. But then, so long as there's intent behind that, and you can
control,
absorb what has happened and let that inform the next thing that you do, then all of that is viable. It doesn't matter whether it was what you intended to do or not. There was intent that drove the production of it in the first place.
Very good. I was wondering as well, out of your works, what would be the one that would describe you the most, in your opinion? Which one, if you were to die tomorrow, which I hope you don't, but if you were to die tomorrow, which musical work would you love people to listen to?
For me, it would be either of the last two quintet albums that I've done would be, if you could only find one thing about me, that would be it. So either the After and Before or the Hearts Full of Grace album. I'd be really happy if that was all that was left.
Cool.
But yeah, as a composer, you want to keep trying different things. So I'm willfully eclectic. Hopefully it's all tied together because it's come from me. But doing any one thing for too long, it starts to get stale. So I need to do something else to refresh me so that when I then go back to it, that thing that I've been doing and has perhaps started to get a bit stale is refreshed.
Yeah. So what characteristics would you be describing of those albums? Out of those albums, what characteristics would you describe that would demonstrate you?
Okay, so it's a mix of stuff that is very recognizable grooves, odd time signatures, some completely ambient, free, breathy stuff. Some of it's a little more challenging harmonically. I'm really keen on textural variety. Hopefully what comes through is, the curiosity and the narrative. I think really hard about curating a track order that will keep a listener wondering what will happen next. That's what I want.
Very good.
Keep listening because that was curious, and then this next thing, okay, the buffet style of you eat a whole load of different food and you'll end up eating way more than you would have if it was just a plate of chips.
Yeah. And where did Pointless Beauty come out of? Is that a concept in itself?
It is, and I've sort of keep considering different ways of looking at it.
Cool.
I think it's partly a sort of slightly defensive thing of feeling like the things that interest and most stimulate me are not the things that are most kind of respected is the wrong word, but if people get an idea of what you should be doing, it tends to be framed around the idea of, will this make money? Is it commercially viable? And I make things because I find them emotionally stimulating. I have a drive to do that has nothing to do with money. So I'm striving towards things that are beautiful in the sense that they stimulate an emotional reaction. Whether that's being sad, angry, happy, whatever it is, it should make you feel something.
Right.
Then I guess it's the irony of that I don't expect to make any money out of this. And if you view that as being the point of being alive or the world, then it's pointless.
Okay, very good. Now I understand. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool, man. I could ponder on that for a while.
I have
to take that in many directions, that concept. It's very nice.
I have two Facebook groups set up for this concept. So there's the one that the SWAINGER Pointless Beauty, which is just stuff about me and my project. But I really wanted to sort of embrace the world of this. So I have the Pointless Beauty community as well, which I almost never share my own work on, but I curate and share all the things that I see where it makes me smile, it makes me feel something, just so other people can see that, and they do too. So that's what that group is. It's just things we think are cool that we want to share with somebody else.
Very good. I might join that group. Is anyone allowed to join, or is it?
Yeah. Just
I'll join
hit the join button, and I'll let you in. I do. I keep control of letting people in because I don't want it to become Spam City or any of those other kind of things. I'm very proud that I don't know how long it's run now, like 7 or 8 years or something.
Wow.
I've never had to throw anyone out of the group, and I've never had to tell anyone off for, being disrespectful or sharing inappropriate content. That's somehow nice. Managed to curate a lovely bunch of people looking at this stuff.
It sounds like a nice community. Quite open-minded, like I could imagine.
Yeah, I really want things to be open-minded. And I like it when people discuss things. It doesn't matter whether people like things or not. So long as you've kind of thought about it and there's a bit of a discussion, then it's good. just causing us to interact and think beyond functionally. We have more to our lives than just getting up, going to do a job, taking your kids to school, and so on.
Yeah,
remembering to look at all the little things that, make us human.
Very good, deep. And as for current projects or future projects, is there anything you'd like to mention?
So I did the Pointless Beauty thing as a studio thing for quite a while because it's expensive doing stuff. But this last year, I've kind of finally committed to having a regular band and paying them to go out and, losing money when there's not enough comes in, all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got gigs across the next year. So if anybody wants to find out where we're playing live, they can go to the pointlessbeauty.com site.
Cool.
Stuff is on there, and looking at recording the next album next year, which will be different to what's gone before, because I think it's important not to keep releasing the same thing.
Absolutely. Do you have a name for that album?
I'm considering Impure Imagination at the moment.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah. I could see that. Impure Imagination. Yeah, that's nice.
Because, fusion is at the heart of the things that I do, and much as I love the mainstream jazz crowd, they can get a bit snobby now and again and say what's acceptable and what isn't, and so I kind of wanted to poke a bit of fun at that.
Yeah, the inner rebel. Very good. And what kind of stuff will it be?
So I've increasingly got into more electronic kind of things. I've used Ableton for a long time and recorded in Cubase, and they encourage different ways of working. And I really like manipulating sounds, and I'm really interested in the different aspects of humans doing things and machines doing things, and how you blend those elements together and have it meaningful so that it's not one or other group dominating, but you sort of work together to do something that neither group could do on its own.
Very good, very good. Any more about stylistically?
I've just started to sort of lean into what the possibilities of AI are with that as well.
You still have plenty of time before you do it, so.
Yeah, there's still...
I know myself like that. If I have an album coming up, I'll say to people maybe 5 weeks before it's recorded, oh, it's going to sound like this. And then 2 weeks before it's recorded, I'm going to be like, no, it's not going to sound like that. It changes as the time goes on, so... Everything you're saying now could be different, maybe.
I'll do a lot of production work after we've recorded it as well.
Cool.
It's kind of like a sculpture thing for me. Because I think it's really good to embrace the differences again between what a live experience is and what a studio album is.
Yeah.
The studio album shouldn't feel like a sterile, poor version of what you could experience live, and the live thing shouldn't feel like a poor copy of the studio album.
Very good.
I like to treat them as completely different beasts.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. And so that will be your next album. When do you plan to release it?
I would imagine it will come out sometime 2026. By the time we've recorded and I've got my editing done, and the mixing always takes a surprising length of time, and then you want to know what that is before you get your reviews and other things lined up. So it's a long time scale hopefully some touring alongside of that.
Brilliant. Are you planning to tour outside the UK?
Eventually. At the minute, we're still sort of getting together quite all the technical possibilities of how the band works.
Cool.
So,
what is it? Is it a quintet? Is it a quintet?
So it's a quartet now. So on the face of it, we've got flugel, keys, drums, bass.
Right.
But because the drummer can trigger additional tracks of things going on alongside.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That I don't need to stay as a bass player the whole time. I can move into guitar type things and synth type things with effects. and the same for the keyboards and the flugel. So
cool.
It's one of those. I look at it. If there were enough people, you could do all this stuff. But if we want to achieve things that require more than the number of people that are there, then we can use tracks and other things to keep those roles going, because it's more important that they're there than specifically I'm doing it quite often.
Right.
So music first, everybody else's concerns about what's allowable and not allowable is very much second.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I'd like to thank you for this episode anyway. It's been great chatting to you, man.
Oh, likewise, yeah.
Yeah, man. I'd love to catch up maybe the next time in the UK just to say hello, cup of coffee.
Yeah, for sure. Get in touch and it'd be great to meet up, yeah.
Yeah, man. And thank you so much for your time. I'll post this on YouTube, on Facebook, and leave links as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
More than happy to share, yeah. Great stuff, Adam.
Thank you, man. See you later.
See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.